Well, greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you're doing well today and that you know the Lord is with you wherever you are scattered. Thus far, as we've made our way through the Gospel of John, we have seen Jesus perform three signs. He has turned the water to wine, he has healed the royal official's son, and most recently, he has healed the man who was lame for 38 years. Today, as we move into chapter 6, we get sign number 4. Jesus and his disciples are on a mountainside. Many people have been coming to see Jesus. They've heard about the signs that he's been performing. And Jesus and his disciples see this crowd coming towards them. And we also get this side little note that it's near the Passover again. And that's worth noting because as they remember how God brought them up out of Egypt, it also gives them fresh hope that God is going to raise up a new leader, a new Moses, who will deliver them from Rome and who will be their king and bring about kind of a new Israel, if you will. So it's near the Passover feast. This crowd is coming to Jesus. They've seen the signs that he's been doing. And Jesus asked Philip where they are going to go and buy bread so that they can feed all these people. And Philip's response is that it would take more than 8 months' wages to purchase enough bread for all of the people to even get one bite. And Jesus knows what he's going to do. John makes the comment that he asked the question just to test Philip. Well, Andrew is nearby, and Andrew hears the conversation, and he notices a boy that has 5 loaves and 2 fish. And so he says to Jesus, here's this boy, here are his 5 loaves and 2 fish. Surely this wouldn't be enough, would it? And Jesus takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and he blesses it, and he breaks it, and gives it to the disciples to distribute. He's had the people, the crowd, the 5,000 sit down on the grass, and they are fed, they have plenty to eat. And Jesus doesn't want any of the food to be wasted. And so he sends the disciples back out to pick up the leftovers. And there are 12 kind of overflowing baskets full of leftovers. At this, the people are impressed with this sign that Jesus has just performed, sign number 4, feeding the 5,000. And they're beginning to wonder and talk among themselves, is this the prophet? Is this the new Moses? And Jesus slips away, heads back up into the mountains by himself, away from the crowd, because he knew that they intended to make him king. So that's the sign, this feeding of the 5,000. There's a lot we could talk about, and some of it is more important than other things. We could talk about how Jesus used the disciples to distribute the food, and so he involved them in this sign. We could talk about how Philip was focused on what they didn't have and kind of a lack of resources, whereas Andrew said, well, this is what we do have. We have this boy's 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus is always more interested in what we do have rather than what we don't have. We could talk about how Jesus takes that little bit, those 5 loaves and those 2 fish, and he basically kind of offers it to God and blesses it. And then from there, it's distributed and there is more than enough. We could even talk about how Jesus didn't want anything to be wasted and how Jesus makes sure that everything is picked up, that nothing goes to waste. We could spend some time on that. But as significant as all of those things are, the real point is what the sign points to us about Jesus. That Jesus is the prophet, that Jesus is the new king, that Jesus is the one who puts on the kind of the messianic banquet, if you will, the feast. Think about it a little bit this way, that Jesus is here acting out being the good shepherd. That here you have this crowd of people. In Mark, we hear that Jesus sees them, they're like sheep without a shepherd, and Jesus has them sit down on the grass, and Jesus feeds them, and you can hear a little bit of the echoes of Psalm 23 coming through here. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures, and he restores me, and he leads me beside the still waters. And so we can kind of see how Jesus putting this sign on is very much kind of stepping into the role of the Good Shepherd. In fact, the people recognize this, that he's kind of a new Moses, the prophet, and Jesus realizes that they want to make him king, the shepherd king. And Jesus gets out of there and won't let that happen. So he gives the sign to help them understand who he is, that he's the shepherd king, that he's the one, kind of the new Moses, if you will. But he leaves before they can make him king. So Jesus is the king, but not on their terms. And that, I think, is where we get stuck. That we hear and see the signs that Jesus does. And we know that Jesus is the one who gives life. And we know that Jesus is the prophet, the king, the Son of God. But we want him to act on our terms. And every time we want Jesus to act on our terms, we're going to get the very same response. He's going to slip away. Because Jesus will not be king on our terms. Because if it's on our terms, he's not really king. We're the ones acting as king and turning Jesus into our servant. And so the challenge for us is to see the sign that Jesus is the king, and then to invite Jesus to be king on his terms in our lives, over our lives, rather than trying to force Jesus to be king on our terms. So wherever you're scattered today, recognize Jesus as king, but then invite Jesus to reign in your life, over your life, on his terms rather than your terms. God bless. Have a great day and live surrendered to the King.